Hi there. Tonight we're going to take a walk, not just through history, but through time as it used to feel, slower, softer, more handwritten. You see, there was once a world where you didn't get replies in seconds or even minutes. You waited, sometimes days, sometimes longer. But somehow, that waiting made the answer more real. You might not remember that world exactly, or maybe you do, in pieces. A mailbox clanking shut. The way paper folds soften after the third or fourth reading. A return address you whispered to yourself just to feel closer to someone miles away. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive this back then. No Wi-Fi, no read receipts, and you'd have to walk, physically walk, to check if someone loved you back. So, before you get cozy, hit like and subscribe. But only if you actually enjoy what I'm doing here. And feel free to comment where you're listening from and what time it is over there. I always imagine these stories floating across time zones like little letters of their own. Now dim the lights, turn on a soft fan if you've got one, and slowly step with me into tonight's story. You walk into a quiet kitchen. The light outside is orange and fading. That special color only sunsets seem to know how to wear. The table in front of you is old, not antique store old, just time-worn. Familiar. And sitting right in the center of it is a single envelope. Your name's written on it, pen on paper. Slanted handwriting that looks like it was written with care, not rushed out with thumbs. You don't open it right away. You never did. You look at it, the way you used to look at birthday gifts you weren't supposed to shake. It's the kind of moment that doesn't happen anymore. Not because it can't, but because we don't leave room for it. The letters warm from the sun that came through the window. And there's that smell. Not the paper itself, the whole experience. A mix of ink, linen, dust, and something that smells a little like memory. You breathe it in without realizing. Funny thing is, before you even break the seal, 100 thoughts bloom. Who wrote this? What might it say? Why today? That's the power letters once had. They made you pause. They created space between a thought and its delivery. A kind of sacred oath that modern life has paved over with speed. You sit down, slowly. This is a moment that asks for stillness. You run your thumb along the fold. You remember doing this as a kid, back when the mail felt like magic. Not bills, not spam, but mystery. Connection. The flap opens with a soft, dry sound, like a whisper you weren't meant to hear. Inside, maybe it's love, maybe it's news, maybe it's nothing more than a few words. But those words traveled. Through hands, through vans, across states, sometimes even oceans. They waited in bags, in bins, in post office shelves. And now they've arrived, on your kitchen table, just for you. Some scholars argue that the emotional depth of physical correspondence stems from its intentionality. A text can be sent mid-yawn. A letter? It asks for a decision. You have to sit down. You have to begin. You have to sign your name. And yet, despite all this effort, you didn't always get an answer. That's the strange beauty of it. You wrote not just to be heard, but to speak. You release the words and let them fly. There's a little laugh inside you now, the kind that comes from disbelief. Imagine explaining this to someone born today. Back then, we had to wait 5 to 7 business days to be disappointed. You chuckle, and maybe wince. You read slowly, because the rhythm is different. This isn't a screen. There's no backlight, no scrolling, no predictive text. There are crossouts, ink blots. The letter lives. And the voice? It's right there. Not robotic, not auto-corrected. The person who wrote this chose every word. Maybe with care, maybe in a hurry, maybe late at night with one elbow on a windowsill. You can almost feel them. There's something deeply human about that. Records suggest that letter writing reached its peak in the 19th and early 20th centuries, not just in quantity, but in social significance. A single letter could start a war or stop one, or just remind someone that they mattered. You fold the paper back up, carefully. Even now you hesitate to put it down, like it might vanish once you do. There's something comforting about knowing the words won't change, that they'll be there tomorrow, that you can carry them with you in a coat pocket or tuck them into a book, unlike messages that disappear after 10 seconds, or emails buried under 100 others by morning. You look at the envelope again. The handwriting isn't perfect, but it's theirs. And somehow that's the best part. Outside, the sun slips lower, the shadows stretch longer, and you sit, just for a little while, with the feeling of being remembered. You don't leave the kitchen right away. You sit for a while with the letter beside your hand, the envelope slightly curled at the edges. It feels strange, doesn't it? How something so small can make time slow down. You look around the room. There's a phone charging on the counter, sleek, fast, full of red dots and badges begging for attention. But right now, it's quiet, almost embarrassed to be here. You think about the way things used to take time, and how that wasn't always a bad thing. A decade ago, waiting was built into life. You mailed a college application and waited weeks for the answer. You wrote to a cousin overseas and circled days on the calendar hoping for a reply. Even photos had to be developed before they could be admired. Life had a buffer. It's easy to forget how deeply those buffers shaped us. The stillness between the sending and the receiving, that space was where imagination lived. And, often, growth. Now, we expect answers instantly. If someone doesn't text back within a few minutes, we start writing stories in our heads. Did I say something wrong? Are they okay? Why are they online but not responding? Back then, you wrote something, licked the envelope, and let go. You had no idea when, or if, a reply would come. And strangely, that freedom made the waiting softer. The silence wasn't filled with anxiety. It was filled with possibility. Some scholars argue that the immediacy of modern communication has disrupted not just our attention spans, but our emotional endurance. The ability to wait, to sit with uncertainty, is becoming rare. And rare things often carry unexpected power. You remember being a teenager and checking the mailbox, with a kind of hope that felt physical. It buzzed in your chest. It made your steps quicker. Not every day brought a letter, but any day could. It wasn't just about the letter itself. It was about the ritual, the slow unfolding of connection. The world used to give you time to imagine what someone might say, to anticipate the sound of their voice in ink. Now, we rush. We edit messages as we type them. We delete and rewrite in the same breath. Responses are judged by their speed more than their sincerity. But here's the thing. Time gives meaning. You don't treasure the fastest answer. You treasure the one that made you feel something. You think of your grandmother's handwriting, slow and looping. It always looked a little like music. She'd write you about the weather, the flowers blooming in her yard, the biscuits she had baked for the church sale. Nothing urgent, but somehow everything important. There's a quote you half remember, Something like, "Letters are the most basic form of time travel." You smile at that, because it's true. You can open an envelope and instantly be 10 years old again, reading a note someone sent to your past self, not knowing who you'd become. And that version of you, smaller, more patient, had the space to feel each word. There's ongoing debate about whether digital communication has truly replaced letters or simply evolved them. After all, aren't emojis just modern hieroglyphs? Aren't texts tiny letters with less paper and more speed? But here's the difference. Time used to filter our words. It slowed us down. It made us consider, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times. And in that process, we found a kind of grace. You stand now. The letter folded gently into your back pocket. It feels oddly ceremonial, like carrying a part of the past with you. Not for nostalgia's sake, but to remember what it felt like to wait. And to be okay with waiting. Outside, the air has cooled. There's a breeze. You walk slowly, not out of laziness, but because the moment seems to ask for it. There's no rush. You wonder what would happen if we built more pause into our days. If we let things breathe before demanding answers. If we left space for feelings to arrive without a chime or notification. Maybe that's why the letter mattered. Not because of what it said, though yes, the words were beautiful, but because of what it represented. Effort, time, and the willingness to not know what would come next. You pass a young couple sitting on a bench. She's scrolling, he's replying with voice notes. They look happy. But there's something different about their connection. Not worse, not better. Just faster. You wonder if they'll ever write each other letters. Or if their grandchildren will ever stumble upon an old shoebox and find them there. As you walk on, you tuck the envelope a little deeper into your pocket, just in case it wants to stay longer. You keep walking, the letter warm against your hip, and the world feels quieter than usual. Not in a lonely way, just hushed. Like the air is listening with you. Ahead, there's a narrow street you haven't walked down in a while. The kind of lane lined with uneven sidewalks, ivy climbing old brick walls, and the occasional rusting bicycle leaning gently against a fence. It smells like time. Damp leaves, dust, a little smoke. Maybe someone cooking with garlic nearby. You smile. This part of the neighborhood hasn't changed much. And yet, everything around you, everyone really, is moving faster. You pause at a cafe window. Inside, someone is staring into a laptop, headphones on, fingers dancing. Another customer is on a video call, nodding as they sip. And over by the counter, someone's taking a photo of their pastry, probably to share before they even taste it. You used to just eat things. You chuckle under your breath. It's not judgment, it's observation. Things shift, always have. But sometimes, those shifts feel like they've taken something quiet and made it loud. A decade ago, if you wanted to know what someone was eating, you had to ask. Now, you get live updates. You can watch someone's vacation while it's still happening. You can comment on their thoughts as they're forming. And while that's miraculous in its own way, you wonder what we've lost. Some scholars argue that over-documentation has changed not only how we remember things, but what we choose to remember. Experiences are now curated in real time, filtered and framed for maximum attention. And in doing so, we sometimes forget how it felt to live a moment without needing to share it. You walk past the cafe and remember a time you sat inside it. Before it had Wi-Fi, before you even had a phone smart enough to distract you. You had a notebook, a pen. You were writing to someone. Or maybe you were just writing to yourself. You can't quite remember, but the feeling is there. The scratch of ink on paper. The slow unfurling of a thought. The freedom to say something without anyone else hearing it right away. There was safety in that. Not secrecy, just solitude. You could be unpolished. You could write without likes or retweets. And that made it more honest. You pass a bookstore next. The window has a display of top 10 must-reads. Bright covers, buzzwords, new voices. But tucked in the corner is a small, crooked sign. We still carry stationery and fountain pens. You stop. Something about it pulls at you. Maybe it's the word still. Maybe it's the fact that someone took time to write that sign by hand. You walk in. A bell tinkles overhead, the kind that sounds like it hasn't changed in 50 years. Inside, it smells like paper and ink and wood polish. Like history in lowercase letters. To your left, the pens. Brass-tipped, sleek, elegant. Some in velvet-lined cases, like they're waiting for someone serious to come along and choose them. You pick one up. It's heavier than you expect. Not in weight, but in presence. It has gravity. It says, "Only pick me if you mean it." A tiny price tag dangles from a gold string. You think of all the messages you've typed without blinking. The emails you've sent without rereading. The texts fired off mid-commute, half-hearted apologies sent during dinner, birthday wishes copied and pasted with emojis and confetti. And suddenly, this pen, this simple, silent thing, feels revolutionary. Records suggest that the average adult wrote over 20 handwritten letters per year just 50 years ago. Today, that number has fallen to less than 2. 2. You imagine the person who still comes in here to buy paper, who still signs their name with ink. Maybe an old poet. Maybe someone in love. Maybe someone who just wants to be remembered in cursive. You don't buy the pen, not yet, but you promise yourself you'll return. Not for nostalgia, but to practice slowness. To write something that takes more than a few seconds to undo. As you walk back out, the bell above the door chimes again. This time, you let it echo. The sun is lower now, dipping past rooftops. A breeze stirs the letter in your pocket, and for a moment, you wonder what would happen if you wrote a new one tonight. Not because you had to, but because you could. Not a text, not a comment. A real letter. On paper that smudges, with ink that dries slow. To someone who might wait days, even weeks, to read it. Someone who might smile when they do. You turn the corner, now holding a takeaway coffee that you forgot to sip. It's gone lukewarm, but you don't mind. The street is quieter here. Fewer cars, more trees. A few mailboxes still stand proudly at the edge of driveways, chipped and faded, but stubborn in their purpose. You glance at one, and an odd thought crosses your mind. How long until we forget what these were for? A decade ago, a mailbox was a place of possibility. It could hold anything. A college acceptance, a birthday card with a $10 bill, or even just a note that said, "Thinking of you." The space inside it was sacred, private. Now, it's mostly flyers and bank statements, and the occasional stubborn bill that still resists going paperless. But there was a time, and you remember it vividly, when checking the mail was a ritual, maybe even a little thrill. You reach a bench and sit. It creaks. Of course it does. Most good benches do. You think about your first phone. Not your first smartphone. No, the one before that. The one with physical buttons that clicked. You used to press 2-3 times just to get a C. If you wanted punctuation, you had to fight for it, and you waited. You'd send a message, something simple like, "Hey, are you free tonight?" And that was it. You didn't stare at the screen. There was no typing bubble to stare at. You put the phone away. You trusted the reply would come. That trust, that gentle letting go, it's not something we talk about much anymore. Some scholars argue that the constant feedback loops of modern communication have trained us to expect validation fast. A message isn't just a message now. It's an event. A read receipt, a timestamp, a ghost if they don't reply. But once upon a time, not so long ago, the waiting wasn't anxiety. It was space. You take a slow sip of your now cold coffee. You remember writing letters in school, not assignments. Letters, on ruled paper with loops and ink smudges. You'd pass them under desks or slide them into backpacks. Sometimes they were sealed with little hearts. Sometimes they were anonymous, and they meant everything. One of them, you remember this, was from someone you barely talked to. It said something like, "You look sad today. I hope you're okay." No signature. Just a folded piece of care. You kept it for years. Somewhere along the way, we traded slowness for efficiency. And while that brought gifts, the ability to call someone across the world instantly, the joy of seeing a friend's face through a screen, it also flattened something. We stopped whispering our thoughts. We started broadcasting them. You look up? The sky's changing. That purplish hour when streetlights flicker on and birds settle into trees. In your pocket, the letter rustles again, a soft nudge from the past. You run your fingers along the edge of the envelope, its paper slightly textured. That texture, that's something you don't feel on a screen. The weight of a thing that took time. You imagine someone, years from now, discovering that letter in a box, maybe a grandchild, or a stranger in a thrift store, and maybe, just maybe, they'll read it and feel what you feel now. Not just the words, but the effort, the care, the quiet behind it. There's a quote you once heard. You can't recall the exact phrasing. But it went something like, "Letters are seeds. Some bloom right away, others wait decades." And you wonder, how many blooms are we missing in our rush? There's ongoing debate about whether the digital age has made us more connected or more alone. The truth, perhaps, is that we're more visible. But visibility isn't the same as closeness. You tuck the letter back into your pocket and rise. There's a street lamp ahead, flickering softly. You pass beneath it, and your shadow stretches long behind you. It looks like someone walking beside you, someone taller, quieter, from a different time. You like that? The night is settling now, wrapping around the edges of the city. And you carry a memory in your pocket, and a thought blooming slowly in your chest. Maybe the most important messages aren't the fastest. Maybe the ones worth keeping are the ones that took their time. You leave the lamp-lit street behind and wander toward a small park you used to visit. The one with the swing set and the wooden slide that burned your legs in summer. It's quieter now, the rubber flooring worn, the paint faded from cheerful primary colors to dusty pastels. There's no one around. Just the hush of leaves brushing one another and the occasional chirp of something small in the bushes. You sit on a swing, and it creaks gently, back and forth, like an old friend resuming a conversation. The swing never judged you. You glance around and remember, there used to be children here, dozens of them, kicking balls, trading Pokemon cards, chasing each other with wild, glorious noise. Parents sat on benches, reading or just watching. Not watching through a screen, just watching. Some of them would strike up conversations about school districts, favorite ice cream shops, the price of avocados. You didn't need a reason. You didn't need a filter. Now, most parents hold their phones like shields, a glowing rectangle between them and the moment. And who could blame them? The world doesn't slow down for anyone. Still, it's strange to remember a time when the word feed meant the ducks at the pond, not an endless scroll of images from people you barely know. Some scholars argue that our attention, our most human currency, is being mined more aggressively than ever before. That every swipe, every scroll, every just 5 more minutes is quietly teaching us to crave stimulation instead of stillness. And you wonder, what happens when a generation forgets how to be bored? Because boredom isn't the enemy. It's the doorway. You learned that here, on this swing. You'd sit for what felt like hours, tracing clouds with your eyes, making stories from shapes. The rust on the chain became treasure maps. The birds became messengers from distant kingdoms. There was magic in your mind because no one was interrupting it. You kick off gently, the swing groaning in rhythm. It's a different sound now, not as loose, not as high, but it still moves you. In your pocket, the letter shifts again. You're starting to forget exactly what it says. That's okay. You'll read it later. Right now, you're here. You notice a tree, a big, knotted one near the edge of the park. You carved something into it once. Initials, probably. Or maybe a sentence. It's almost impossible to see now, the bark swollen around it like a scar that forgot what caused it. You walk over, hand tracing the grooves. The carving's almost gone, but the impulse remains. The need to mark a moment. To say, I was here. I felt something. In the age of digital footprints, that urge hasn't left. It's just changed form. A story, a tweet. This made me think of you. But permanence? That's harder to come by. You once spent hours making a scrapbook for someone you loved. Printed photos, little paper clippings, dried leaves from a hike. You still remember how your hands smelled of glue for days. Now we send a carousel of pictures and call it a memory. There's beauty in that too, no denying it. But sometimes, the ease takes away the meaning. The more effortless it is to share, the less effort we often put in. And effort, that's love's quiet language, isn't it? You sit beneath the tree, back against its rough bark, eyes tilted toward a sky smeared with lavender and gray. A light breeze picks up, and somewhere a wind chime answers softly. You wonder what someone from 1925 would think if they saw today. Would they marvel, panic, laugh? Honestly, they probably wouldn't survive the traffic. But maybe, just maybe, they'd be delighted to see how far we've come, and quietly heartbroken at what we've left behind. There's a story of an old man, no one famous, just someone who lived a long time, who said his favorite sound in the world was his wife's handwriting. Not the sound of her voice or her laugh, or even her breathing at night, but the sound of her pen moving across paper as she wrote letters at the kitchen table. He called it the sound of someone thinking kindly. That stays with you, because maybe that's what the world is aching for now. A little more kindness in the quiet. A little more thought before reply. You take the letter out now, slowly, almost ceremoniously. You don't open it yet. You just hold it in your hands, like a pebble still warm from the sun, and you decide something. Tonight, you'll write one back, not because you owe it, because it's a gift to write slowly, to sit in a moment, to think kindly. You rise, brushing bark from your jacket. The sky has dimmed to deep indigo, and the first star is blinking, uncertain and hopeful. And just as you turn to leave the park, your phone buzzes. You don't check it. Not yet. The path home curves gently through the old part of town. Sidewalks crack beneath dandelions. Street lamps glow more amber than white. You walk slowly, evening cushioning each step. A black cat with one white paw darts across, pauses to stare, then disappears into the hedge, like a thought you almost remembered. You smile. Ahead, the bookstore, the same one you visited on quiet weekends. The display's changed. Now planners, journals with embossed covers, mugs that say, "Booked and busy." You pause at the glass. Inside, a single lamp glows above the counter. Behind it sits the same woman from a decade ago, now with shorter hair and silver streaks. She's reading. No screen, just paper and peace. You step inside. The bell chimes softly, unchanged. She looks up, smiles in recognition, returns to her book. No words needed. The air smells of old paper, lavender, and faint coffee. You wander to the back. The older shelves, the creaky ones, dusted with history. Your old corner waits, where you once sat when you didn't know where else to go. You sit. Back then, you escaped here to dream, to imagine distant futures. You read about rebels, inventors, impossible love. You once thought, I want to do something that matters. Scholars say literature shapes not just how we see the past, but who we believe we can become. You believe it. Books taught you about silences between words, people, generations. Stillness isn't emptiness. Sometimes it's where the truth rests. You spot a familiar book. Cloth cover, corners frayed. Inside, someone's underlined the good lines, the ones you would have. One is circled in pencil. We write not to be known, but to be understood. You sit with that. You wonder, maybe we're writing more than ever, but being understood less. There's a difference between being seen and being felt. Rain begins, soft as mist. It taps the windows like piano keys. You think of your letter again. You haven't read it in full since you found it. But here, in this quiet place, you unfold it. The paper crackles. The handwriting is unmistakable. Confident strokes, one line rewritten, a few misspelled words. It's human. It begins, "Hey, I don't know where you'll be when you read this." And just like that, you're back to when you received it. Back to the smell of cut grass outside the school window, back to the feeling of uncertainty, hope, and something like courage. The letter talks about waiting, how long it takes to know who you are, how some conversations happen over years, not minutes. It ends, "Don't worry. You don't have to reply right away. Just promise me you'll keep going." You fold it carefully, place it in your pocket. Somewhere in the store, a chair creaks. A page turns, and something shifts in you. Some messages aren't meant to be replied to. They're meant to be lived into. You stand. The woman at the counter smiles again, like she knows, like all bookshop owners do. Outside, the rain grows bolder. You pull up your collar and walk. The city is quiet. The world, softer. You pass a man on a bike, a couple sharing one umbrella, a child giggling as a stick trails through a puddle. The night is alive, but not loud. At the corner, you pause. The lamplight casts warm, long shadows. You wonder, what will this look like in 10 more years? Will bookstores still exist? Will handwritten letters be relics in museums? Will swings still creak in quiet parks? Or maybe, just maybe, we'll choose our way back to the slower things, the softer things, not because we have to, but because we remember they mattered. The light turns green. You cross, and for the first time in a long while, you feel a kind of peace that only comes from reading a message that didn't ask for a reply, only understanding. You find yourself on an old avenue lined with telephone poles, the tall kind, wooden and weathered, their cables slicing across the sky like tangled threads of memory. There's a certain rhythm in the quiet buzz they hum, a whisper of all the voices they've carried. If you listen closely enough, you might even hear one. This was once the busiest street in your part of town. You remember that. Saturday errands, Sunday strolls, the scent of pho steaming from a corner restaurant, bicycle bells ringing like tiny wind chimes. People knew the names of shop owners back then. Even the dogs had routines. Now the stores are fewer, the lights dimmer. The bank became a smoothie shop, then a nail salon, then something you can't quite remember. Change comes fast when no one's keeping track. You pass what used to be a print shop, a real one. Paper flyers, wedding invitations, church bulletins. You remember the smell, ink and warm paper, like hope baked into pulp. Your cousin got her graduation cards printed there. You came to pick them up and left with a flyer advertising salsa lessons you never attended. You smile at the thought. Some scholars argue that the ephemera of daily life, things like tickets, menus, receipts, tell the truest story of an era. Not kings or wars, but grocery lists and scribbled notes on napkins. Ordinary moments that pile up into something extraordinary, a life. You think of your old voicemail greeting, the one you re-recorded 3 times to sound more grown up. Hey, it's me. Leave a message. People used to wait for those, wait for replies. Not just seconds, but hours, days even. Now we panic if someone doesn't answer in 5 minutes. It's strange, isn't it? How seen became a status, a receipt, a reminder that silence isn't always golden. It's sometimes deliberate. You reach the end of the block, where an old payphone still stands. The glass is cracked, the cord frayed, but it's there, like a monument. You step into it, out of nostalgia more than need. Your fingers trace the buttons. 1, 2, 3. You almost dial your childhood home just to see if muscle memory can do what logic can't. There was something sacred about calling back then. The ringing had weight. You imagine the other person walking across a room, picking up the receiver, deciding to answer. There was presence in it. Now we ping one another across platforms, DMs, texts, stories. Each message a knock on a dozen digital doors, hoping someone will open just one. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's just the world growing new skin. Still, sometimes you miss knowing someone's favorite ringtone. You remember calling a friend just to talk. No reason, no agenda. You'd lay on your bed, legs on the wall, phone hot against your ear. The minutes would stretch like taffy. You said things you wouldn't dare text now. Vulnerable things. Silly things. The kind of honesty that echoes better in voice than in font. You sigh and lean against the cool glass of the booth. Rain has stopped now. The pavement glistens, collecting stories in puddles. A couple walks by, sharing a laugh. You can't hear what they say, but the sound of joy is universal. It travels better than Wi-Fi. There's a small sticker inside the phone booth, peeling at the corners. You lean closer. It reads, "You are exactly where you need to be." And for once, you believe it. There's something grounding about this place. This tiny, forgotten corner. It reminds you that not everything needs an upgrade. Some things are beautiful because they stayed the same, like late-night conversations, like pen on paper, like waiting, really waiting, for a reply, and knowing it might come with a voice, or a smile, or a walk around the block. You step out of the booth, leaving the past intact. In your jacket pocket, the letter still rests. Its presence feels warmer now, less like a mystery, more like a guide. You decide you'll write a reply tonight, not on your phone, not with an emoji, but with ink, real ink, the kind that smudges if you're impatient, because there's something sacred in slowing down. You take one last look down the avenue. The old poles still hum, the signs still fade, but somehow it doesn't feel empty. It feels full of moments you almost forgot. And as you walk away, your phone buzzes again. You smile, still not checking. Not yet, because some replies deserve more than a reaction. They deserve your whole attention. You find your way to a park you used to visit after school, the kind with iron swings and wood chip ground that always smelled of summer. The entrance gate squeaks as you push it open. It always did. There's still a bench near the sandbox, the one with initials carved into the armrest. You sit down, brushing off a few damp leaves, and you notice the faint smell of rust and pine. Somewhere nearby, a sprinkler ticks like a slow metronome. This was once the gathering place after a long day, back when everyone's schedules overlapped and unplanned hangouts were just normal. You didn't need a calendar invite or a group chat. You just showed up. Someone always did. Today, the swings creak in the breeze, riderless. A squirrel inspects a crumpled snack bag. A paper plane lies soggy near the slide, its message illegible but full of intention. It feels like time pooled here, like the past never left. It just got quieter. You lean back, the bench pressing gently into your spine. There's something comforting about the sound of children in the distance. Their laughter doesn't ask to be recorded or posted. It just is. A fleeting joy, unproofed and perfect. You wonder if kids today will remember TikTok dances the way you remember hopscotch. If their memories will loop in vertical video. Or if maybe, just maybe, they'll carry some analog magic with them too. There's a backpack under the bench, forgotten. You reach down, unzip it carefully, expecting gym clothes or a notebook. Inside, a library book titled Letters from the Past, A Journey Through Lost Communication. You blink. It feels like the universe is playing along now. You flip it open. Inside the front cover, there's a name in neat cursive, a child's, likely, and a small note that reads, "If you find this, keep it safe. This book matters." You pause, thumb grazing the page. Some scholars argue that children develop deeper empathy when they engage with old forms of storytelling, letter writing, oral histories, even shadow puppetry. That these methods slow the mind just enough to let compassion bloom. You believe it. You read a few pages. One story is about a sailor writing home during a monsoon. The ink bled across the paper, but the words still reached his mother weeks later. Another is about two friends separated by war, who sent coded messages hidden in recipes. You glance at the playground again. A boy runs to the monkey bars, his dad trailing behind, phone in hand but not watching. The boy climbs anyway, shouting, "Dad, look!" And after a pause, the dad pockets the phone. Good. The boy hangs upside down and laughs. You smile. That used to be you. Not the upside down part necessarily, but the look at me part. Wanting to be seen. Not by the world, just by someone who mattered. You close the book and tuck it back into the bag. Maybe the kid will return for it. Maybe they'll find it again and know someone cared enough to keep it safe. You rise and walk toward the swings. There's one that doesn't creak. You sit. Your feet brush the ground. Slowly you pump your legs. Not too high, just enough to feel the gentle resistance of air. The kind of swing where you can hear your own breath between gusts. You remember swinging like this as a kid, asking questions that had no answers. What will I be like when I'm 30? Will I still have the same best friend? Will robots take over? Now, older, the questions haven't gone away. They've just changed their clothes. What version of myself did I lose to time? Which tools helped me grow? And which ones made me smaller? You swing a little higher. A leaf falls, spiraling like an indecisive dancer. You pull out the letter again. It flutters slightly in your hands. The paper feels alive in the breeze. You read the last line once more. Just promise me you'll keep going. It's funny how something so quiet can be so loud in the right moment. You sit for a while longer, letting the swing sway to a stop. The chains clink softly. The world doesn't rush you. And somewhere deep in the park, a bird sings a song you don't recognize. But somehow, it sounds like home. You step off the swing and begin walking again. Your pace is slower now, thoughtful. The kind of walk where every step feels like a sentence, and every pause a comma. You're not just moving forward anymore. You're carrying forward. The stories, the questions, the voices written in graphite and sealed in envelopes. You realize the reply you've been meaning to write all this time? You've already started. Every small act of noticing, every quiet choice to be present, every moment you chose a pause over a ping. It's all part of the answer. And you're not done yet. Not by a long shot. You continue walking, now on a quiet street where the fading light catches the edges of old brick buildings. Their facades wear a patina of stories. Some forgotten, some told 1,000 times around kitchen tables. The sidewalks here remember footsteps that vanished long ago. But if you listen closely, they murmur in soft echoes. As you stroll, the scent of fresh bread drifts from a nearby bakery, warm and inviting. You pause, breathing it in, the aroma wrapping around you like a comforting blanket. It reminds you of simpler times, Sunday mornings when your family gathered around the table, passing buttered toast and stories back and forth. You think about how bread itself hasn't changed much in centuries, even as the world shifts around it. Some recipes remain timeless, like the memories tied to them. A few yards ahead, you spot a faded mailbox, the kind that once collected letters for the postal service, now standing quiet, almost like a relic in this digital age. You approach it and notice a small sticker. Letters carry more than words. Indeed, they do. You run your fingers along the chipped paint, imagining the hands that dropped letters here. Lovers confessing secrets. Parents sending blessings to children far away. Old friends keeping promises through ink and paper. You remember the patient waiting. The slow anticipation of a letter's arrival. The careful unfolding of the paper. The lingering scent of perfume or cigarette smoke on the pages. Some scholars argue that this slower pace of communication allowed for deeper reflection, even greater emotional presence. In contrast to the instant messages we now fire off in seconds, those letters invited you to savor the silence in between. You smile at that thought, savoring silence, something that feels so rare now. You pull your coat tighter against a sudden breeze. The sun is dipping below the horizon, painting the sky with soft oranges and purples. It feels like the world is holding its breath, a pause, just like the ones letters used to ask of us. Nearby, a small group of children play tag, their laughter bubbling up and weaving through the evening air. You notice one girl chase after her friends, clutching a crumpled sheet of paper. Curious, you watch as she stops to unfold it, reading with furrowed brows before breaking into a smile. It's a letter, perhaps, a secret message passed hand to hand. A small rebellion against the digital world. You chuckle quietly. Sometimes the simplest things carry the heaviest meanings. You remember your own youthful moments of rebellion, sneaking out past curfew, scribbling notes in class, passing folded papers under desks. Those acts felt like tiny victories, little threads of autonomy woven into the fabric of growing up. There's an ongoing debate among historians about how these seemingly small acts shaped social bonds and identities before the internet age. They call it micro-resistance, subtle ways people carved out space for connection and self-expression. You think about how those threads are still there, just transformed. Texts, tweets, memes, the new notes passed between friends. Yet something about the tactility of a letter, the weight of the paper, the curve of a handwritten word, is missing from a digital screen. You realize that even with all our modern tools, the human need to feel seen, understood, and remembered remains the same. That's the real thread connecting past to present. You fold your hands in your lap and close your eyes for a moment, letting the calm of the evening seep into your bones. You hear the distant hum of a car, the rustle of leaves, the steady pulse of the city winding down. And as the sky darkens, you carry with you a gentle hope that no matter how fast the world spins, the heart of connection beats steady. You step forward into the night, knowing the journey isn't about the destination, but the small moments that light the way. You walk on, the street lights flickering awake one by one, casting pools of golden light on the pavement. The soft glow makes the ordinary extraordinary, revealing cracks, shadows, the faint outline of footsteps etched into the concrete. It's as if the night itself is telling you stories, if only you know how to listen. Ahead, you notice a small cafe still open, its windows fogged with warmth. The scent of brewing coffee and baked goods drifts out like a gentle invitation. You step inside and the bell above the door jingles softly, blending with the quiet chatter of a few late patrons. You find a seat near the window, watching as the world outside settles into twilight. Your hands cup a steaming mug, its heat grounding you like a tether to the present moment. You recall how cafes used to be the heartbeat of social life, places where friends met face to face, conversations flowing freely without the glow of screens between them. Now, even here, people often retreat behind their devices, thumbs scrolling, eyes flicking. The paradox of connection in a disconnected age. You take a slow sip and think about how the tools of communication have shifted dramatically in the last decade. 10 years ago, this cafe might have been filled with whispered secrets and laughter, unfiltered and raw. Today, conversations sometimes feel scripted, edited, rehearsed for the gram. You smile to yourself, amused by the thought. A barista calls out an order. 1 caramel latte for the dreamer. You wonder who that dreamer is. Maybe someone sitting alone, hoping their future holds more than just fleeting moments. You remember your own dreams from 10 years ago, how vivid and wild they felt. Some realized, some quietly abandoned. Life's ebb and flow carries us along, doesn't it? Like a river carving new paths with each turn. There's a surprising detail about this cafe. It was once a library. Before the age of digital books, people came here to lose themselves in pages rather than pixels. The shelves still line one wall, dusty and worn, holding stories that no Wi-Fi connection could replace. Records suggest that libraries in the early 2000s were community hubs, where ideas crossed paths and grew. Today, while information is abundant, the space for serendipity has shrunk. You pick up a book from the shelf, a collection of handwritten letters from the 19th century. The ink is faded, the edges yellowed with age. You trace a line of cursive, marveling at the care poured into each word. Some scholars argue that handwritten communication encourages mindfulness. The deliberate act of crafting a message slows the mind, making the expression of feelings more profound. You think about how often we rush through our messages today, hoping for speed rather than depth. You set the book down gently and look around the cafe. A couple shares a quiet conversation, their smiles soft and real. An elderly man writes in a journal, pausing to watch the steam rise from his cup. The moment feels timeless. You realize that no matter the era or the tools, human connection remains the heart of our stories. You finish your coffee slowly, savoring the last warmth. Outside, the night has deepened, stars beginning to pepper the sky, a reminder of constancy amid change. You rise, stepping back into the evening air, feeling lighter somehow. The past and present dance together here, whispering lessons about patience, presence, and the courage to keep reaching out. And as you continue your walk, the world feels just a little more hopeful. The street narrows now, lined with old row houses that lean in close like old friends sharing secrets. You notice the soft glow of a single window still lit, curtains slightly parted. Inside, a grandmother rocks gently in a chair, a knitted blanket draped over her lap, the quiet ticking of a clock marking the passage of time. You pause for a moment, reminded of your own grandparents' homes, places where stories lingered in the air like the scent of cinnamon and worn leather. There's a warmth in these quiet spaces, a sense that time slows just enough for memory to breathe. You think about how the roles we play have shifted over the last decade. Grandparents, once the sole keepers of family history, now often the ones learning to use smartphones and video calls to bridge distances. There's a little-known fact that in the early 2010s, over 70% of elderly people had never used the internet. Today, that number has flipped dramatically, with many embracing technology to stay connected with loved ones. You smile at the image of a grandmother triumphantly sending her first emoji or learning to swipe on a touchscreen. Small victories that carry enormous meaning. You imagine the conversations happening behind closed doors. Stories passed down, sometimes forgotten, sometimes rediscovered through the glow of a screen. You keep walking, your footsteps muffled by the soft carpet of fallen leaves. The air smells faintly of wood smoke in late autumn, crisp and comforting. You reach a corner cafe where, a decade ago, you met friends after school. The chalkboard outside still advertises the same special, hot chocolate with marshmallows. You remember the excitement of gathering there. No phones in hand, just laughter, shared secrets, and plans for tomorrow. Today, the place is quieter, but the spirit remains. You order the hot chocolate and take a seat by the window. Watching the street, you see a group of teenagers passing around a physical book, an unusual sight in a world dominated by e-readers and tablets. It strikes you how, Even amid rapid change, some rituals endure. There's an ongoing debate about whether digital reading diminishes or enhances comprehension and empathy. Some studies suggest that screens encourage skimming, while paper invites deeper immersion. You feel the weight of the hot mug in your hands and consider your own reading habits, the gentle rustle of turning pages versus the quick tap of a screen. You take a slow sip and watch the steam curl upward like a whispered story. You think about how life's true lessons often come from slowing down, from savoring the moment rather than rushing through it. The streets grow darker, the sounds of the city softened to a hush. You feel a quiet sense of gratitude for the path you're walking. A path marked by change, yes, but also by resilience. And as the night deepens, you carry with you the knowledge that every era offers its own kind of magic. You finish your drink and step back outside, ready to continue. The journey goes on. You leave the warm cafe behind and step onto a quiet, tree-lined avenue where the leaves flutter softly in the evening breeze. The trees seem older here, their trunks thick with age, branches stretching wide like the arms of time itself embracing the past and the present. You pause to touch the rough bark, feeling the grooves under your fingertips. A tactile reminder that some things endure despite all the changes around them. It's humbling to think about how many seasons these trees have witnessed, how many footsteps have passed beneath their shade. You recall the days before smartphones, when people relied on printed maps and verbal directions. Getting lost was part of the adventure. Now, GPS voices guide us turn by turn, often leaving no room for serendipity or the thrill of discovery. There's a surprising fact about navigation. The word compass comes from Latin, meaning to go around. For centuries, it was both a literal and metaphorical tool for finding one's way. Records suggest that early sailors and explorers depended on their compasses and stars to navigate unknown seas. Much like we seek inner guidance in today's fast-paced world. You chuckle softly at the thought of fumbling with paper maps, trying to fold them back into their original shapes. A universal challenge before digital maps took over. You lean against the tree, closing your eyes to the sounds, the rustling leaves, distant footsteps, and a faint melody from a street musician playing an old tune nearby. Some scholars argue that the tactile experience of navigating with physical maps and compasses nurtured spatial memory and patience in ways modern tools might not. You wonder if, in our quest for efficiency, we sometimes lose a bit of our internal compass, that quiet voice guiding us beyond the GPS. You open your eyes and watch a young couple nearby, heads bent together over a phone screen, debating the best route. Their smiles are genuine, filled with the warmth of shared experience despite the tech between them. It strikes you that even as tools evolve, the human connection at the heart of every journey remains unchanged. You take a deep breath, smelling the earth and leaves, a grounding scent that reminds you to stay present, to appreciate the path beneath your feet. As you continue walking, you carry with you a subtle lesson. Sometimes, finding your way means embracing uncertainty, allowing yourself to be lost for a moment before discovering new directions. The streetlights flicker softly ahead, welcoming you forward into the unfolding night. You step onward, gently reminded that every journey is both outward and inward, a dance of exploration and reflection. You move onward, the night deepening like a velvet curtain around you. The gentle hum of distant city life fades into a quiet lull, as if the world is softly exhaling before sleep. The pavement beneath your feet feels cooler now, and you tuck your hands into your pockets, savoring the comforting rhythm of your own steps. Ahead, an old phone booth stands at the corner, its glass panels fogged and streaked with age. It looks like a relic from a bygone era, a tiny sanctuary where, just a decade ago, you might have stood waiting to make a call, coins clutched tightly in your hand. You smile at the memory, recalling how public phone booths were once lifelines, places where people connected across distances without the immediacy of smartphones. You think of the excitement and sometimes the awkwardness of those brief, precious calls. There's a quirky detail. Some phone booths were designed with curved roofs, not just for rain protection, but also to amplify sound, making conversations clearer. It's a small invention with a big purpose. Records suggest that phone booths peaked in usage during the late 20th century, before mobile phones began their quiet revolution. You lean against the booth, feeling its cool surface, and consider how communication has transformed since then. Instant messages, video calls, emojis. All tools that connect us faster than ever, but sometimes risk making conversations feel less personal. You chuckle softly, remembering the awkward teenage voice cracks during phone calls, or the struggle to find a quiet spot away from prying ears. Some scholars argue that the slower pace of past communication fostered patience and anticipation, allowing feelings to simmer and words to carry more weight. You wonder if today's immediacy sometimes leaves us longing for the depth found in those moments of waiting and wondering. Nearby, a street artist sketches portraits with charcoal and paper, offering glimpses of people's faces in a way no selfie could quite capture. You watch as a passerby pauses, eyes bright with delight at the delicate lines and shadows emerging on the page. There's a timelessness in this simple exchange. The human hand creating something unique, tangible, and personal in a world increasingly digital. You breathe in the cool night air, mingled faintly with the scent of rain yet to come. As you step away from the phone booth, you carry with you a quiet understanding. Progress brings change, yes, but it also invites us to cherish what we lose along the way. And sometimes, those lost moments return to us in unexpected forms, reminding us who we are and where we come from. You continue walking into the night, footsteps steady, heart quietly hopeful. The night air grows cooler as you find yourself near a small park, its wrought iron gate slightly ajar, inviting you inside. The soft crunch of gravel beneath your feet blends with the distant hoot of an owl, a sound as old as time itself. You pause by a wooden bench, its surface worn smooth by countless visitors, a silent witness to conversations, quiet moments, and dreams shared under the stars. You settle onto the bench and close your eyes, letting the stillness seep into your bones. The gentle rustle of leaves above you feels like a lullaby whispered by the night. You think back to how parks have evolved over the last 10 years, once simple green spaces where children played freely, now often dotted with digital kiosks, Wi-Fi hotspots, and fitness trackers beeping on wrists. It's a curious blend of nature and technology, progress and tradition. There's a surprising fact. In some cities, urban parks are now being designed with digital detox zones, areas purposely free from screens and signals to encourage presence and mindfulness. Records suggest that spending time in green spaces has profound benefits on mental health, creativity, and emotional balance, benefits that no app can replicate fully. You breathe deeply, savoring the earthy scent of damp soil and pine needles. You recall stories from your own childhood, summer days spent chasing fireflies, nights lying on grass gazing at stars, feeling infinitely small and infinitely connected all at once. Some scholars argue that these experiences foster a deep sense of belonging and grounding, essential for navigating the rapid pace of modern life. You smile softly at the memory of grass stains on your jeans and the thrill of discovery in every nook and cranny of that park. You notice a father nearby, gently holding his daughter's hand as she tentatively takes her first steps toward a fountain, its water shimmering silver in the moonlight. It strikes you how, across generations, these moments of growth and learning remain unchanged, even as the world around them transforms. You feel a quiet hope swell within you, that no matter how much technology advances, the simple magic of human connection and nature's embrace will endure. You rise from the bench, the night sky vast above you, stars blinking like distant promises. You step back through the gate, the world gently shifting around you, and continue your walk with a heart full of gratitude and wonder. You follow a narrow path that winds gently upward, the soft crunch of leaves beneath your feet mingling with the faint chirping of crickets hidden in the bushes. The night air is cool but not cold, carrying the subtle fragrance of blooming jasmine that seems to linger just out of reach. As you climb, the city's glow fades behind you, replaced by a tapestry of stars stretching endlessly above. The sky feels vast and quiet, a perfect moment suspended between yesterday and tomorrow. You pause to look back, seeing the familiar lights that mark the places you've come from, and then forward into the darkness where the unknown awaits. You think about how much the world has changed in the last decade. The tools you once relied on, the rhythms of daily life, the ways people connected. And yet, here in this quiet moment, the essential truths remain the same. The desire for belonging, the courage to move forward, the grace found in simply being. There's a little-known fact. Ancient travelers often navigated by stars, using patterns as guides when no maps existed. This celestial navigation is a metaphor, some scholars say, for how we find direction in life, through quiet observation and inner guidance. You feel a gentle smile play on your lips as you realize your own journey is much like those travelers. Sometimes you follow a clear path. Other times you must trust the faintest light to lead you. The night feels alive with possibility. You sit on a moss-covered rock, pulling your jacket tighter around you. You close your eyes and listen to the soft whisper of the breeze, the distant call of an owl, your steady heartbeat. Some scholars argue that moments like these, moments of stillness, allow us to reset, to gather strength for the roads ahead. You breathe deeply, letting the peace wash over you. You remember the letter you once waited for, the call you once held your breath to make, the plans you once sketched in a notebook with hopeful hands. And you recognize that every change, every shift in time, has brought you here. Stronger, wiser, more connected. You open your eyes and look upward, the stars shining like tiny beacons of hope. You feel ready to face whatever comes next, carrying the lessons of the past and the dreams of the future in your heart. And with that, you rise, stepping forward gently, ready to keep walking the path. Tonight, as you settle deeper into your bed, the world around you quiets, and the soft rhythm of your breath becomes your gentle companion. Let your thoughts drift slowly, like leaves floating on a calm river, carrying you back through the moments we've shared. The letters that once carried hopes and fears, the quiet anticipation of a phone booth call, the comforting glow of a park bench beneath the stars. You might recall the texture of paper, the weight of words carefully chosen, the patience that filled the hours between sending and receiving. In these memories, there is a tender lesson. That waiting is not just about delay, but about presence, a chance to grow roots while reaching for the sky. Feel the night air wrap around you like a soft blanket, inviting you to rest. In this stillness, know that change is a gentle teacher, guiding you to release what no longer serves and to embrace the new with an open heart. The journey through time is not a race, but a dance, sometimes slow, sometimes swift, always moving toward deeper understanding and quiet strength. As your eyes grow heavy, let this thought settle within you. You are part of a story much larger than yourself, connected by invisible threads of time, hope, and resilience. And so, with a whispered sigh and a heart full of grace, you drift into sleep, ready to greet tomorrow with gentle courage.